Conversationists, please welcome to the stage Hrund Gunnsteinsdottir, founder of Crowd Consulting, entrepreneur and chair of the Technology Development Fund in Iceland.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be emceeing here with you today. Honorable guests, MPs, leaders from different sectors of societies, from about 80 countries, 400 of us gathered here today. It's been a great day so far. The leaders' talks have been amazing. I've myself been really inspired. We would like to thank Anne Cairns at MasterCard for a really inspiring and wonderful lunch today. Let's give her a hand. So coming here together is all about making change. We're creating a community of leaders from all over the world who are on a mission to elevate the role of women as leaders around the world. I just want to remind us of the hashtags that we will be using throughout the conference. Hashtag Power Together, hashtag Women Leaders Iceland. A really exciting session coming up. I would like to introduce to the stage the chair, Tasneem Brogger, who is the managing director of Nordics Bloomberg News. Give her a hand.
Thank you. So I have the honor of presenting to you today three illustrious guests, the first of whom is Jacqueline Hunt. She is a member of the management board at Allianz. She's also the chairman at Allianz Life Insurance for North America. She's been referred to by Bloomberg, no less, as one of the most important women in global finance. And numerous articles have been written about her success in a heavily male-dominated world. Next, we have Deborah DiSanzo. She's the general manager for IBM's Watson Health program, which is probably, as you all know, one of the most ambitious projects of our time in terms of its potential benefits to humanity through artificial intelligence. And last but not least, we have Kira Yang, who is the founder and CEO of LifeGuide, which focuses on providing the next generation of leaders with the tools to succeed in a rapidly developing labor market. Thank you. So we all know that in order to stay useful in this rapidly developing world, we need to keep educating ourselves. That's what this session is about. So what does the frenetic pace of change in today's workforce mean in terms of defining talent? And what sort of educational structures can provide the right skills for tomorrow's workforce? So I'd like to start with Kiri. Your personal example shows how learning by doing, seizing the moment, can lead to really impressive success. What are the skills that made you succeed? And what do young people need today in terms of skills that they perhaps didn't need 10 to 20 years ago?
Thank you so much for having me here. So I started my first company in a heavily dominated by male when I was age 16. And I had the privilege of actually creating jobs for over 100 Americans, mostly people over the age of 40, and they were all male. Actually, I don't think I, at the time, even had the grasp of this whole gender equality at the tender age of 16. And that's when I realized one of the differentiator is entrepreneurship, leadership, these skills that were not taught in schools. I started college earlier, and I graduated a little earlier as a result of my business, and also learning that many of the skill set that I wanted to learn as a businesswoman was not taught in the public school. I'm a product of University of California, I went to UCLA, and also a product of University of the Unified Public School. And during that experience, I learned so much that there was a huge gap between what the universities and high school and education system prepares you versus what the companies and real society is expecting. And there is an incredible report by the Gallup poll that shows that 96% of universities think that they are preparing students for workforce, and only 11% of workforce actually thinks that the students and the young people are prepared for workforce. So that's when we realized that these future skills, often referred as soft skills, tenacity, grit, resiliency, and leadership, teamwork, is not necessarily measured in these companies and corporations, and also nonetheless taught in these academic system, education system right now, and that's what got us to start this company, Life Guide.
Just to follow up on that, excuse me, you said something interesting while we were talking before, that you've been educating yourself along the way. You've sort of considered maybe going back to university and doing a degree, but you've found other ways to get the right skills that you need. Can you talk a little bit about that just briefly?
Absolutely. So I was incredibly privileged to have incredible mentors along the journey since I was very young, and most of them were actually male. They were very, very interested in investing in young women to bring forth some of the skill set that they felt like were not necessarily seen in male traits, such as empathy, such as compassion, and collaboration and facilitation that's much needed in leadership positions. And so when I got this mentorship from my mentors, that's when I realized, oh, wow, you know, I think it's much needed in the society for women to collaborate with male and focus on working together intergenerationally and also collaborate. And I'm really, really honored to be on this panel with two incredibly accomplished women, and also I'd love to hear more also from them and share their stories, as I would not be where I am without my mentors, and many of them have been males and also females who helped me realize that we're born with this superpower, and there's so many courses that's been offered through technology that we can learn at a tip of our finger, accessible. And so, yeah, I think really extended education and information is available everywhere through technology. So I'd love to hear more about how you have gone about and the panel.
Thank you.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So exactly, Deborah, over to you. The field that you work in is as technical as it gets. Mm-hmm. But is there an element of creativity to, you know, the traditional STEM subjects that tend to be required to get into your area?
This is why I love artificial intelligence and why I love artificial intelligence for women. And I use my daughter, Emily, as a case example in this. So Watson Health is full of women. The woman who runs the Watson platform is a woman, and Watson Health is full of women. Why is that? When you're thinking about artificial intelligence, sure, there's math in there, but there's natural language processing, which actually isn't math at all. But the whole thing is you're trying to solve problems. If you're doing AI right, you're trying to solve problems, and women are fantastic problem solvers. And to be able to solve problems, you need creativity. You need creativity. So my daughter Emily is 19. She was looking at colleges. We were talking about this in the back, and I really wanted her to be a data scientist, and she wanted nothing to do with data science. And so I made her come do an internship at Watson Health. And while she was there, I introduced her. She wanted to be a fashion designer, which is a very fine career. But I just thought, is that really it? So I introduced her to designers, because if you're creating artificial intelligence solutions, there's design that goes there. It's not just the math. And I introduced her to the women data scientists. So she is at MIT. She is going to do programming, but at the same time now she channeled her activities and she's made a dress out of leaves. And so, I mean, so a case study of one, to really see that you can meld creativity and problem solving together with AI. And so if I could reach every young woman out there, I would say, do not give up on STEM. AI is a beautiful place to go into to use your creativity and your problem solving skills.
Thank you. And Jacqueline, the finance industry is full of highly educated, highly skilled, highly confident people. But AI and automation are making inroads, dramatic inroads in that field as well. How does a financial professional adapt? How does this affect your approach to recruiting and looking for talent?
And thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored here to be with my fellow panelists as well. In terms of the impact of things like automation, digitalization, and AI on finance, there's been research that would indicate something around 54% of jobs over time are likely to be lost to automation or to robotics in some form, potentially into algorithmic trading, those sorts of things. And if you step back and think, how many people are actually employed, what does that actually mean? It is, I think, an almost existential challenge to the finance industry and to the people that we employ around how do we actually make sure that we are both fit for the future, that we're optimizing the technology that's available, and then also that we help our employees along on that journey. So the sorts of things that we're looking at, and I think you're a perfect example of it, if I dare say that, I think the sort of skills is not just the STEM subjects. I think they're really important, but I think that frightens a lot of people. It chases away a lot of people who feel maybe I'm not so good at maths, or I'm not so good at, the sort of sciences. I'm much better at some of the arts and the other elements. And my view has always been that actually what matters most is this curiosity, this kind of ability to learn, lifelong learning. And as I say, some perfect examples here on my left around people who will grasp an opportunity and will see, what they can add in terms of that environment and how they can contribute. Organizationally, the sorts of things we're looking at as we look at the new future, we're very clear that there's some job roles that will cease to exist. Data scientists obviously becoming increasingly important skill sets within all industries, I think. And so what we're trying to do at the individual level is to encourage our people to start asking questions, making tools available to them, sort of long-distance learning platforms, the sorts of things that we were chatting about earlier. But most importantly, being clear that this is everybody's personal responsibility actually to make themselves fit for the future in the way they approach things. And I do think skills that are outside the norm of the very sort of analytical skills will continue to be incredibly important. Things like empathy, creativity, innovation, leadership, these sorts of things. As we look at finance, much of what will happen, we think, is actually human enterprise being augmented by many of these capabilities instead of being wholesale replaced. So being comfortable with working with those sorts of tools and augmenting your own skills and capabilities, I think, is going to be critical.
It sounds like there's almost a sort of an irony that the two of you are articulating, all three of you, in fact, that as technology advances, the need for creativity in humans advances. Deborah?
It's very, it is when you're so in augmented intelligence, if you have a machine doing the fundamental math, well then what is it left for you to do? If you're a physician, then learning to get back to talking to your patient in an empathetic way, if you're a radiologist, really going beyond what the image said to how you can actually help with the patient care. And if you're an accountant, I don't know what, but there must be some empathetic thing that an accountant would do there. But that really is it. The machines will take over. The machines will actually take over the computation, the math, and then it's left for us to do something else. I had said that actually in these data science roles there are 500,000 open jobs in the U.S. for technologists, and we cannot fill them. The way we're training our students today are not filling these roles. There are just not enough technologists are even coming out of schools. So we need to look at other ways, and there's apprenticeship programs that IBM is putting together for people who were school teachers or nurses coming in then and just adding this creativity of problem solving of data scientists to what they did before. And we're doing other sorts of programs, 6-year programs combining high school and community college together. So you come out with a 6-year high school diploma and associate's degree for data science, for problem solving. And, I think we'll see more and more of these in the years to come.
Interesting. I'd like to move on to the question of quotas and affirmative action. Is that the way to get the best qualified workforce? Kiri, what do you think?
I sit a lot on a lot of these gender equality conversations and future of work, and I actually agree with a lot of my fellow panelists when it comes to let's not create even more silos. We have to really work more together. And I was just at a founders dinner where there were 35 male founders and 4 female founders, and 3 of the women were very resentful. But it really starts with understanding and acknowledging, then taking action from there. I was actually rather thankful that we were invited because there's something that we can actually do about. And when I talked to the host, they came up and they just thanked me. Thank you so much for showing up. How did you get here? And I said, well, one of my other female founders said they need more women, so go. So I went, and we actually now in this conversation about let's have 50-50 conversation, where we have 50 women and 50% of male founders, so that we help each other and create these allies instead of shaming and blaming and getting upset. Rather, without men, we wouldn't be here. I love my father. I love my male mentors, and without them, we wouldn't be here. So why don't we, instead of labeling ourselves and creating this kind of silo, break down that silo? We're all human race, same human race. We're all, gender equality. It just means we just got to work together. So quotas are really great, but really focusing on individual, because we're very different people as human beings. So really focusing on areas that we just need help, not because I'm a female founder, but because I'm just a founder going through the same thing that you've gone through. And I've been helping so many other founders through since I've now founded 4 companies, whether it's co-founder resolution, whether it's conflict resolution, hiring, litigation, it's universal. And that's not specific to gender, but if anything, as female founders, we do have more areas that we're just stronger at because we have the ability to carry children. And that's what my female mentor always stressed, focus on what you have and give to whoever is in need, and then they'll just help you. So I really think it's about working together.
Jacqueline, what's your view on the question of quotas in the financial industry, for example?
We were chatting about it earlier. I've always come from a background, I don't like quotas, because actually what I think is it sets up almost a conflict. It creates this environment where there's a view that, for women to succeed, men have to lose. And I'm wary about it for that reason. I am a big believer that actually diverse teams, while they're more difficult to manage and to get the most out of, and I think we need to be honest about that, that the more diversity there is, the harder it is to kind of get people onto the same page and to move forward. I do think they make far better decisions and far more balanced decisions, and they create more sustainable business over time. So I think the objective of having inclusive businesses, and that whether that's gender or sexual preference or ethnicity, I would include all of them, is absolutely critical for sustainable business. I have got to that stage in my career where I've sadly concluded that actually we need quotas to move it forward, because while I would absolutely agree that we're all humans and it should happen naturally, it doesn't happen naturally in very traditional businesses. And so I think quotas, as much as I don't like them, I think they cap out the aspiration. So I'll sit in a lot of various meetings where people say, well, we've got 25% female and that was our target, so we've done well, tick in the box. I find that a very uncomfortable debate, because that should be the starting point rather than the ending point. But I think in lots of very hierarchical traditional environments, having at least a target that you're beholden to that externally is transparent is critical to actually see this move forward.
Deborah, you were nodding the whole time.
I had got my first general manager job in 1998, and I remember thinking then, I don't want people to say I'm a woman general manager. I don't want them to say I'm a great woman general manager. I just want them to say I'm a great general manager. But then over the time, I had realized, one, I need to be a mentor, and I need to be a leader, and I need to give back, and I need to help women. And I'm just sorry, but before there were quotas for women to get on boards, women were not on board. So unfortunately, I hate quotas, but we need them, because and women being on boards, the FTSE made the rule first. California now has just made the rule that women corporations in California need to have women directors. It makes a difference on a board. It makes the diversity of thought different. I think women think different. They think about stakeholders different. They think about shareholders different. It makes the board stronger. And unfortunately, we could only get there with quotas. And so I think I've come around to quotas are necessary. Otherwise, we just keep hiring people who look like us, and people who look like us might not look like us. So
I'm sure the policymakers in the audience will be very interested in those answers. I'd also like to ask you about the what you touched on earlier, the mismatch between what universities and colleges think they're churning out in terms of the qualifications graduates have, and then at the other side of the spectrum, what the companies who are looking to hire actually want. And you mentioned, I think it was 96% versus 11% in terms of the gap there. Yeah. What can we do about that? Does that just mean that private enterprise has to take over and pick up the baton?
Well, this is a really interesting question that gets asked quite often in HR conferences and future of work conferences, and mostly now in education, because being in Silicon Valley, we have the privilege to work with Stanford very closely. Very well-resourced school, forward-thinking, progressive. I have the honor to work with the CTO of the Graduate School of Education, who's also a creator of Smile Education, that's all about asking the right questions and teaching students to facilitate the conversation and giving a different role to teachers. So we're very much stuck now in 60s and 70s education, even the assessment. The SATs no longer predict your success of how well you will do in companies. It predicts how well you will do in universities. But that assessment also needs to change. And frankly, AI and machine learning, as well as automation, is created by human. And also these assessments are created by humans. So there's a lot of new assessments that are being rolled out. There's over 13 assessments that assesses social emotional learning. And one of the ones that we have implemented as a company is called ACT Tesora, which specifically measures leadership, teamwork, social skills, and grit, resiliency, and school climate, how that has a direct correlation to the success of how they will do in the later years. And so without really assessing how well you're doing, you can't really treasure and measure the impact. And so these, hopefully, there's a lot of hope that in education, it is being implemented and enforced, but at the same time, just not fast enough to how quickly things are being automated. So one of the areas that we're really encouraging is actually not the students, it's the teachers. Teachers need to change the way that they're teaching. One of my mentors actually said, if the men who succeed are the ones that when you look at them, they know themselves and what they want very well, and they know how to use technology to get what they want. Like look at Elon Musk, right? Then they say, if we can teach women, because most of them actually are they're just born with these talents that machines cannot replace, then give them this power of skills, technology, understanding technology, not coding and hard skills, but then problem solving, logic, and giving them these hard skills in STEM education that is more related to problem solving, then we will produce so many Elon Musk that are women and take over the world. And so how do we go about doing that? It starts much earlier in middle school and high school, giving them the access and resource of entrepreneurship, leadership skills, and conflict resolution, even communication skills, something that we cannot, it's a skill set that's much needed in this exponentially changing world that people do not at this time think can measure, but can be measured. So yeah, there's a lot of hope around it.
Do you feel like the education system is providing you with the graduates that you need in your industry?
I think it really depends. I mean, we operate across 147 countries. I would say each education system has its strengths and its weaknesses. Some are very vocational, so very structured. They teach a certain type of learning. Others may be better at teaching critical thinking. I think all of them obviously should adapt as the external environment changes. I'm a little more relaxed, I guess, in some ways, because my view is very strong that actually we're no longer going to have linear education where, you know, we go to primary school and then a high school and then your primary degree, your secondary degree, and then you finish learning and you're going to move on into the world of work and a career. I think the pace of change now means that we need to reskill ourselves continuously. We need to be open, and there are now tools to do that. And so I think you asked, is that a role for you know, sort of commercial enterprises to engage in? Yes, it's also a role for policymakers to engage in. But I think we don't come out anymore as a finished product to 24 or 25. You know, we're going to live longer. We know that, you know, sort of the average lifestyle, maybe 100 odd, perfectly achievable nowadays. So I think to believe that we can just learn for X number of years and then we're done and dusted doesn't feel sustainable. So to me, it's more this question of, are we getting all these other skills and capabilities and tools that later in life, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, we can continue to retool ourselves for the new world.
Absolutely. Deborah?
I think 10 years from now, 100% of jobs will be affected by AI. And so we can be afraid of it, or we can, as women, because we're fantastic creativity and problem solvers, we can embrace it and we can upskill and reskill ourselves. And because it's new, we have the opportunity to do that. So there's no one really entrenched in AI yet. So we can go to the university and take a data science class. We can take an analytics class. We can go on IBM.com or any other site and create a bot. It's actually easier. And if you go on and you create a bot, you say, hang on, I can do this. And then we are reskilling ourselves for the future where we take on the role of a human and we partner with a machine to do the hard tasks.
Which brings us back to our original point, that it's the soft skills that are actually becoming more important as technology sort of moves ever more into our lives.
Yes.
And I did want to add on to that, which is this kind of conference is so important because we, women leaders and leaders in businesses, come from all over the world to collaborate together. Because I think there's a heavy focus on education, but a lot of the successes come from collaboration with commercial, with private sectors, with companies investing early on to these younger generation in colleges, in high school, and giving internships and opportunities where they get to actually really learn about and prepare themselves for future of work and understand the qualities by role modeling, seeing these different women to see what's possible, and having that makes a world of difference. So I just wanted to, you know, take the time to acknowledge Women Leaders Forum for bringing all of us together, because I think our role is really breaking that silo as human beings, because it's not against a robot, it's really more collaboration with humans. And we are only going to become more advanced with and agile as human beings rather than being fearful of the uncertainty of what the robotics and automation will create. It's really about, as human beings, how can we bring the best out of what we have as human potential, and focusing on that and really collaborating around that is what I think this forum has brought us together.
And that's a great note to finish on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kiri,
Thank you.
Deborah, and Jacqueline.
Thank you.